Welcome to the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may have missed, with your hosts AJ Kuti and Jason Gordon. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We are the Reschool'd podcast, the show that discusses all the things that schools may not have prepared you for. As always, I am AJ, and sitting across me, Jason. Jason, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, AJ. Just got through walking my girls to school, and it's starting to rain everywhere, so I just beat the rain in, so feeling a little fortunate there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. It's a little bit gloomy, you know. Got to work to get the energy up.
It is ominous at my house right now. I looked outside before
we
started.
Really?
Yeah, it's getting dark. I think we got like a small cell coming through, but if you look on the weather map, it's like red. So you're probably going to hear some thunder throughout this episode, possibly, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, no worries.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. But well, today's episode, we are going to be talking about one of my absolute favorite topics to talk about in class. I talk about it in
Food?
one of my that's a different class. I did actually teach a restaurant entrepreneurship class one time, which we talked about food, which was awesome. It was one of the greatest classes ever. But no, I am talking about opportunity cost. It is one of those things that, you may hear the term, but once you actually start, at least in my opinion, once you start using it in real life, it starts making your life a whole lot better. You start to see things differently. And I absolutely love talking about this topic. I actually spent, when we were doing, hour and 15-minute classes, I would spend close to 50 minutes just talking about opportunity cost. Talking about...
Oh, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, examples and stuff.
If you're not a type of person who's gotten into economics before and ever heard the term, it's probably something you did anyway, right? You just didn't realize you were doing it. So, but before we jump in, let me remind everybody, visit us on the website, reschool'd.com. That's Reschool with a D, not an ED. Drop us a line. Let us know what you want to hear about. Visit us on the social media profiles and also your favorite podcasting app. Give us great ratings, so we'll pop up on the top of everybody's feed, and then you'll be an early adopter and be like, oh yeah, I knew about this show way back when. So
yeah,
there's my pitch.
We need to come up with a community. So for when when more people come around, that they can be part of the community. Like we call them reschoolers, kind of like preschoolers, but reschoolers.
I like it. Yeah, we can get some T-shirts made up.
Yeah. Well, no, and before we get to the quick question, I do have a little bit of a issue to take with you. You just brought up it. You brought up economics. I know it's got some economics, but I'm an accounting teacher. Don't give this away to economics. Which fortunately, managerial accounting does encompass a whole lot of other areas too. So, but I don't want to lose this. So, quick question: did you feel like you were giving up anything when you decided to go to college?
No,
nothing
at all. I mean, I had nothing. So this is, and I think this is a huge difference between a lot of people, right, in different areas, come from different backgrounds, things like that. For me, my parents the whole time, they had not gone to college, but they recognized the value and everything like that. So they told me from the start that our objective for you is to make certain you can go to college. And that was the expectation, that you go to college, because they tied, particularly at that time, right? I went in the late 90s. So they were so closely associating financial or professional success in life with getting a formal college degree. And, we'll probably talk about in this episode a little bit how that might not be the case anymore. But at my age then, based upon, the way I grew up, they said that that's what you're going to do. And I didn't doubt it for 1 second. That is what I was going to do, right? And I was going to make that happen no matter what. So nothing in my life was, there were no opportunities there that I was giving up for the opportunity to go to college. The going to college was just a foregone conclusion. That was the opportunity. So yeah. Is that something similar on your side, or did you experience something different?
No, I think it's right about there. I think we talked about this in a previous episode too, that, there are your options of coming out of college or coming out of high school are you either go to college, you go into work, or you take that gap year. And I knew kind of what I knew I wanted to do. I knew exactly what my career path was going to be, kind of where I was going. And I knew it was going to be long and arduous. And I also knew for my personality, my ways, I knew if I took a year off, I would get more complacent. I would get lazier. I wouldn't be in that rhythm. And so I knew if I did take a gap year, I knew I was going to be pretty much giving up more than going directly into college. And I didn't want to give that up. I didn't want to lose that momentum that I had. And I was really, really afraid of that. And much like you, that my parents kind of pushed the importance of college, especially knowing what your career path is going to be. Because my dad was, at the time, when I was growing up, he was a professor in college and he became a dean of the School of Business. But, I saw the importance of it. I saw the importance of it for what I wanted to do. I will say on the other side, like my son right now, who's a senior, he's trying to figure out, what he's going to do. And he's more of that kind of trade skill personality. So he's looking more at a trade school. And so it's not like I'm pushing, you have to have bachelor's, master's, blah, 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 blah. It's just whatever you need to be able to be successful, that's what you go for. But you need to understand kind of what that outcome, what your outcome is going to be. So you don't have these, costs that you're giving up that actually could be more beneficial to you.
And, I had friends, tons of people that I was around growing up that didn't have that same mentality. Their parents were not pushing them towards a traditional 4-year college experience type thing. And usually most of those people, when they were graduating high school and stuff, they were already involved in something. They had jobs that they were working in already and things like that. So they had some plan, some direction and things like that. So if you find everyone out there listening, you find yourself in that situation where, there are things you have to give up. That if you're going to go to college, these things just aren't going to work together. Yeah. Whether sometimes it's things like relationships, right? Because you might have to move away and the other person's not moving with you type scenario. Even if it's not a significant other, at least it's your parents, right? Yep. You're moving away from them, and odds are you live with one or both of them up until that point in time. So a lot of things could change that way. Jobs, right? You're leaving a job or some level of employment, or you have your own business or something like that going, and then you're going to college to do that instead. Some people have dreams of other fields like athletics or acting. It always astonishes me when I hear some of the people in Hollywood talk about, their path. And so many of the stories begin with, I was 17 years old or 18 years old, and I told my parents I was not doing what they expected of me. I wasn't going to college, or I wasn't taking this job or doing whatever. And I just went out to LA, or I went out to Hollywood, or I went to New York, that type of thing. And, for that select few, right, it worked type scenario, right? So, but there was an opportunity cost there. If they would have, there was an opportunity cost in that decision, taking that adventure and pursuing a very difficult career. But there would have been an opportunity cost to pursue a traditional career and not do that, right? And obviously their lives probably would have turned out a little bit different. So anyway, I guess, that's the context of what we're talking about right now. So with that being said, let's go ahead and break it down for them. What do we mean when we say opportunity cost?
So definition-wise, opportunity cost is the potential benefit that is given up when you choose one alternative over another. And this is kind of one of the reasons why I bring this up in my class is our lives are full of decisions that we make. I mean, we make decisions every hour, every day, on something, and it could be yes, no, here, there, depending on whatever the situation brings up, you're always going to have a decision to make. And when you make that decision, you're always going to have to give up something for one versus the other. And so when you understand what opportunity cost is and how to actually use it for the decisions that you make, then you're able to make decisions more clearly, more beneficial to you, and you can start seeing kind of, and I kind of look at it, opportunity cost, as in two ways. You have the immediate opportunity cost, and then you have the kind of future-oriented opportunity cost. This is what the immediate impact is going to be. This is what I'm giving up now in order to do this, but this is also what I could be doing with this time, with this money, with this resource, whatever it may be. That's why I love talking about this stuff, because you can put so many things we do in perspective, and it just blows your mind. And had somebody told me this, okay, so for instance, I was talking to a buddy of mine this morning after we dropped our kids off from school, or at school, and we were talking about how back in the day, if we had some money, it was like, oh, I want this. Like, this is the cool thing. I want this. It's going to make me happy, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, now it seems like every purchase at the age that I'm at, every purchase that I make, I'm thinking, I really could probably be spending this money on something else. Like, there's something probably more important than me getting X, Y, and Z. I could use this for gas, or I can use this for food. That's probably a bigger one for me. But it always seems like I'm always thinking about how I probably should. Like, if I want a new computer, I love technology. If I want a new computer, all I can think of is that's a good amount of money. That's like a whole month's worth of food cost for us. And so I have to go through these things. I have to go through make these decisions, and that's where it like I said, we naturally do it, but once you actually kind of consciously look at it from an opportunity cost perspective, it changes a whole lot. It makes your decision not as stressful.
Well, it makes you do the math, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're comparing one thing to another. And why I say math, it's not necessarily numbers unless you can actually put a dollar value on it. And some things you can, right? If you're buying something, that makes it easy. But doing something or experiencing something maybe doesn't have a dollar value the same way. But, you're comparing two things and saying, why is one better than the other, and how much better is it than the other? Because particularly, say you're doing one thing versus two other things, like, why is one more valued than the other? So comparative, you're just comparing two scenarios. And while we do that every day, every choice we make, are we really, like I say, sitting down and doing the comparison? Like, when is the combination of things that I'm foregoing worth more than the choice I make today?
Yeah.
Right. I
will say probably one of the biggest, most common ones that students come up with or come to when it comes to decisions, at least in college. I remember this back in my day. I don't know if it was a big decision for you because it seemed like you were pretty planned out, but you get to that point where Thursday night comes around and you got a test maybe the next day or whatever, and you're thinking, do I study or do I go to the party? I mean, and that's when you start to think, okay, most of us, when we think that way, we're looking at it as, well, the fun is over there. But then when you really kind of break it down, you're looking at, okay, what are my priorities? Is the fun aspect priority? Is that my priority, or is it the grade aspect? If your grades are on the line, then you're probably going to forego the party. If you prioritize fun, then you're probably going to forego the studying. And that's probably one of the most basic examples I can give you for instant opportunity cost. I mean, you're looking at what it's going to do now. Now, you can also extrapolate that and say, okay, if I fail this exam, then I may fail the class, and that means I'm going to have to spend a whole another semester on this class. And especially if it's prereqs, then that means I'm pushing everything back potentially a whole semester, and that's going to throw everything off, and it's going to potentially put me in a fall graduation. And if I'm trying to get an internship, summer internship, there's a gap semester in there between when I graduate and my summer internship. And then it starts to push a whole bunch of things back. I mean, that's the interesting piece of opportunity costs is, again, it's not always immediate. It also has potential for the future impact too.
I can't tell you how many times I've had that exact same scenario with students who I was advising, and they, life became too much, whatever. They needed to, not put the effort into a course, and they didn't pass it, or they didn't have a high enough grade where they get credit for it in their major and stuff like that. What I don't think they were measuring was, what was the opportunity cost, the time that they were investing in other things versus the time they would have needed to invest in the course to pass it or get the grade they needed. And they didn't do it. And then, so it was more than just saying, oh, I got to take the course over. It was all the other implications, right? How does that affect you in the future and things like that? And oftentimes after the fact, right, that Monday morning quarterbacking, when you're talking to them, they're like, oh God, I didn't realize how badly that was going to hurt my progression, or I didn't realize how much it was going to hold me up in my progression towards graduation. So anyway, yeah, I mean, so sometimes I think particularly in scenarios where you don't understand all of the externalities, things that are, surrounding the decision, you just don't realize exactly what the effect or impact is going to be. Right. So, yeah, great point. With that being said, on the personal side, anything, come to mind immediately that you had to give up because of opportunity costs or around the time of college or going to college?
I mean, personal, because we're going to break it down to personal and financial, and personal is part of personal is financial, to some extent. But the biggest personal thing from the personal opportunity cost side for me when I was looking at stuff is just the time, and time is one of those things that's hard to put a value on, because it's just, what is your time worth at that time? I mean, sometimes it's like, it's very valuable because you've got something else to do. So in order for you to pivot away from what you need to do, it needs to be worth something. Or it's, I've got a bunch of free time, and the first time somebody calls me and says, hey, we're getting together, I'm like, okay, cool, because I have nothing to do. So I think time is probably one of the biggest resources that we look at, because it's a constrained resource. I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day. So I would say from a personal side, that would be mine. What about you?
Well, I've always, early on, I was, so focused on progression towards success. And I would give up anything to, continue the mission, whatever I was on. And my mission back then was graduation, right? And, but I was working at the same time and supporting myself. So there was the money coming in from that and the security that lent itself. And then the money beget opportunities to do really amazing things. Like I studied abroad a couple of times because I was able to save up enough money to be able to take a semester and, one a summer semester, but one a full semester. I was able to save up enough money to pay for that, right? Where I didn't have to work, where I was able to pay the program fees and do all the things necessary. So I tended to look at things in terms of, how much could I make in the job I was doing, right? And so, and when I added everything up, like the study abroad, for example, that was an experience. It meant so much to me. It was in continuance of the mission before, but it added something to it. And then my continued progression towards graduation, plus the personal benefit and growth that I got from that, was worth more to me than the few $1,000s that was the program cost. And I was making really good money waiting tables in college, right? I was probably making 40 grand a year back then, which is more like 50 or 60 easily now. Maybe even more, maybe 70. So, because I was working almost every day and I was in a great restaurant type thing. So, I was making good money. So I forewent almost, right, a third of a year's salary. So I was looking at, was this worth was the cost of the study abroad worth $25,000 back then, probably equivalent of $30,000 or $40,000 now? And the answer was yes. Yeah. I was glad I did it, right? But, so money was something I definitely measured everything by, because I looked at money as opportunity.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
I think everything we do kind of comes back, almost everything comes back to we can turn everything into money. Whether it be time is money. Money is money. I got one question for you, more of a personal question. See, I can almost guess the answer to this based on your personality, based on what we talked about on the show. But have you ever made a decision based on a significant other? Girlfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend for you?
Yes, but the only time I ever did that was when I was finally engaged to be married.
Oh, okay.
I joined the Army at the end of law school. Okay. I went through the accession process and I was like, well, I'm not ready to go into a cubicle or an office in a law firm somewhere, so I'm going to join the Army. And I did the JAG Corps, which was a law office in the Army, but it was still a lot different, right? Still a whole bunch of military stuff mixed in with professional responsibilities. But that being said, I was all signed up. I was going to go to Germany right? I was going to be in one, because the U.S. Army has multiple bases in Germany, and that's kind of one of those prime spots. And, you don't have any obligations. You're over there. You get to travel pretty much every weekend. So these guys, they see dozens of countries. They have amazing experiences by doing that. And that was what I was going to do. And then I got engaged and got married. And because I needed to be close for our, to have our wedding, right, after I went in and stuff like that, I had to pick a installation of assignment that was closer. And I requested the 3rd Infantry Division in Savannah, Georgia. And that's how I ended up in Georgia.
It's a big difference between Germany and Savannah.
Yeah, it's a bit, Wiesbaden versus, Hinesville, Georgia.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even in Savannah. I was outside of Savannah, right?
Oh,
So that was a huge, huge, huge change based upon a significant other, right? That was my big one. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, I wouldn't say it was based solely on my significant other, but it was when I graduated, I was dating someone who was she was a year younger than I was, so she was still in school in my hometown, and I had the opportunity to go to other colleges, but I stayed in hometown partly for her, and then we ended up breaking up, and it didn't last, so I could have gone somewhere else. But then, I mean, again, you can look at it in hindsight and think, okay, where am I at now because of the decisions that I made back then? I'm fine. I love my life now. So, who knows what it'd have been if it would have been differently. Obviously, it would have been differently if I would have gone somewhere else. So you can always look at the hindsight side of it. But yeah, I did make a decision based on that, and it's probably not I don't know if I would do the same. I mean, obviously, again, if I could have the same life I have now, I probably wouldn't do it that route. I would have picked more based on what I truly did want.
So based on what we've seen in our experiences, if we were to put together a list of the things that equate to an opportunity cost for going to college, right? We've talked about in different series, we've talked about the advantages of college, right?
Sure.
Personal advantages, career track, all that kind of stuff. But so the things that we're giving up, we've talked about relationship, right? So significant other, that could be an opportunity cost that the opportunity that you're giving up, right? We've talked about money.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's arguably the biggest one.
Yeah. How much it costs you and how much you forego in earning in order to take that opportunity.
And potential opportunity, like how much you're foregoing, because with a lot of positions, if you don't have a degree, you're not eligible for that position. Mm-hmm. So kind of on top of the growth, you also have the financial side as well.
Mm-hmm. And, I would say experience type thing. If you have a career path lined out, we talked about that example of going to Hollywood, for example, right? Lots of times making it in something is just a long struggle, right? And if you don't undertake that struggle and start doing it from moment one, you may be missing out on the potential that what could arise, right? So taking a break out of a professional career or whatever you're doing to go to college, right? That is an opportunity cost, right? Everybody always says, oh, you got plenty of time to come back and travel later. You got plenty of time to go and try to be a singer or try to be an actor or try to play professional sports or try to be a writer or try to build your own business or do all these things. But in many ways you don't, right? Time is finite. You only have so much of it and you never know when yours is going to run out. So when you take time out in life to go to college, you hope it's building you for something else. But it's also taking away if you have another track. Now, some people are just drifting, right? You have no idea. But sometimes you are giving up that aspect, that potential time, the benefit of how that builds towards your career, right? So you're giving up a certain level of experience, whether it's personal experience or professional experience. So any other things you can think that's part of the opportunity cost, things you're giving up?
No, it's all about resources. Wherever the resources go, like, so if we're talking about money, time, experience to me is a resource. because you learn a lot of valuable things from experience. And that kind of
Mm-hmm.
goes hand in hand with the time aspect, because a lot of it has to do with time. Where you're spending this time is where you're gaining your experience. One of the best examples that I tend to use in my class for students, just to kind of understand it, because it is, I don't know if it's a huge thing for college students, but it's an area that their mind typically goes to maybe after they get out of college, you get a big person job, and that's buying a car.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that, everybody would love to have a brand new car. And I think they said the average, I can't remember exactly what it is, so don't quote me on this, but I want to say the average car payment right now per month is somewhere between $700 and $800 for a brand new car. And that's for 72 months, I believe. And all I can think is, okay, so let's think about this for a moment. Let's assume if we're going to buy this car that we have let's just call it $700. $700 a month, okay? That's, if you're going to buy this car, that is a debt that you're contractually obligated to pay. So $700 is coming off of your check, out of your check every month to pay this car, or you're going to lose the car.
If not, they're going to go get the car.
Exactly. So then you go, okay, well, if I don't buy a $700 car, let's do the opportunity cost analysis here. Instead of me buying a brand new car, what if I buy a used car? One that gets me from point A to point B. One that I'm not trying to impress the person next to me. It's not a glorious car. It gets me from point A to point B. And let's just say it's, I don't know, high end $300 a month. Okay, so 7 to 3, that's $400 a month that I'm saving. So $400 a month, that's $4,800 a year. What could I do with that $4,800? That's the opportunity cost. Could I take that money and make money? So now the opportunity cost even grows. Could you invest it into something? Could you put it into your retirement? So then this one car that you're choosing between, so whether it be a new car or an old car, it's $700 per month for the price. Or I can buy a used car for $300 a month, take that $400 a month that I'm saving, putting it into some kind of investment fund. So when I retire, it's going to be worth potentially millions, at least low in million. And so now you're asking yourself the question, is that car, that brand new car, really worth giving up potentially $1 million when you retire?
Mm-hmm.
And that is opportunity cost. And when you put it in perspective like that, like nobody told me that when I was in school. Nobody told me, hey, this is how you're supposed to look at opportunity cost. This is the best way. And when you start to do that, you're like, oh man, these decisions that I wish I could make, there's some better alternatives out there. I don't necessarily need that brand new car.
And, the same thing applies to things like clothing, jewelry, electronics, and technology, right? It's nice to have that new iPhone or new Android phone every time they come out. And it's great to have, the smartwatches and the earbuds and all these great things, right? But then you look at what you're giving up. It's not just the money, it's what that money will do for you employed in a different way. And you have to look at it like that. So money is a good proxy for basically looking at the value of opportunity that you're giving up. And so, when you're in college, right, these decisions that you make, it's going to make a difference. Whether you choose a meal plan, right, how much it costs versus how much it's going to cost you to eat out or off campus or get your own stuff, and the time that it takes for you to do that, to prepare your food, to go to the grocery store and buy it, to do all those things, right? It's just all of this needs to fit in there. People, even at a young age, I just didn't understand why some of the other people that were living in the dorms or on campus and things like that didn't get the college meal plan, because the cost of it in every way you calculated it was cheaper than it would be if you ate your own food, right? If you ate out, if you, during the day and things like that, if you had to buy your own food and take the time to prepare it and things like that, it was just the convenience factored in with the cost, I couldn't for the life of me see why people wouldn't do it. Now, when you move off campus, it's a completely different story because all of a sudden now it's another cost
To
of
get there.
time and, money, gasoline, parking, all that good stuff to actually get on campus to do it. But, so all of this, so I guess more what we're talking about than anything else here is just how you make decisions. And as long as you incorporate the idea of it's not just the cost, or the stated cost, it's the opportunity cost that goes along with it. And if you have that, right, then you can make the decision. You can compare one thing to another and say, this matters that much more to me, right, than something else. And there you go. I mean, that there's a life skill for you to continue to use for the rest of your life. Hopefully it's, useful in making this whole college decision or decisions while you're in college.
Yeah, and I will say this, when we talk about opportunity costs and the way we talk about it, and even the example that I used with the car or going to a party versus studying, we're not saying that there's a right or wrong answer. Like, that's one of the things when I bring this up, they're like, oh, you're just telling us not to buy a brand new car. You're not. No, I'm not saying anything like that. It's just like what you said, Jason. It is all about understanding it well enough that you can make the most well-informed decision. If that new car means that much to you and it means more than what you're giving up, then obviously that's the direction that you're going. If the experience of the party means more to you than the studying, that the outcome of the studying, then that's the decisions that you're going to make. I'm not saying that those are right or wrong. Everybody's different. It's just understanding it on a conscious level. These are the things that you need to pay attention to. What could you be doing? What are you giving up in order to do this? Or is there a better option? Is there a better alternative? That's, to me, it's worth its weight in gold. Like you were saying, with your study abroad, that money you could have used somewhere else. But that experience was worth its weight in gold for you. That's what that's what you wanted. And that's, you're talking about the technology side. Technology is one of those big things for me because I get a lot of utilization out of it. I do all of our podcast stuff. I do all of my class stuff. I do now my class stuff that I'm a student in. I use my computer and my iPad more than anything else I have in this house. And that's just one of those things that I don't mind spending a lot more money on than just, buying used or old or not the brand that I use. So it's all about your prioritization. Where's that inflection point? Where is that point where you're saying this option over here is more valuable now and potentially in the long run than the other option over here? And that to me is opportunity cost. And that's why I wanted to bring this up in an episode on this podcast, is because it's so valuable. Students need to know how to use this because they're going to come to a point where they're going to have to make decisions. Odds are you made a decision. If you're listening to this podcast, you made the decision to listen to it. You could be listening to the radio, but hopefully you're finding more value in this that's going to help you further than listening to maybe a song.
There you go. All right, guys. So you have it. There's your decision-making criteria. What are the costs? What are the opportunity costs?
Yeah.
So anything else to you want to talk about on this topic before we wind things up? I
think that's about it. Like I love opportunity cost. And actually there's another one too. It's called sunk cost, which is another fun one to dabble in. Maybe that'll be a episode for another time. But no, this has been a great one. It's actually gone completely off script, but I love being able to just talk about, kind of what we feel about the topic rather than, try to answer a couple questions that we came up with. So, well, that's been fun. You got anything to say before we head out?
Just remind everybody to hit us up on the website, our social media channels, and of course your favorite podcasting platforms. But let us know what you want to hear about. Send us a message. We'll talk about it on air. You got any shout outs you want us to make? We might be able to do that too. So
absolutely. Well, we had fun. We hope you did too. Until next time, we hope to see you there. Goodbye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Reschool'd podcast. Be sure to head over to reschool'd.com for news and other information on things we're getting into.